Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne. Good morning. We're here with you on this Thursday edition of Sidelines, and a lot to talk about. Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, to join us here in just a moment. And looking around, man, college football, I want to talk to him about the crowds. This year, I think the crowds have been incredible. I think it's been just amazing to see the fans, I think, are really making a statement that, you know what, you can talk about changing college football all you want, but we love the game. It's something that, means a lot to the fans, and it's just been incredible to see it. And I think there's been a big, season ticket sales. You saw those at programs that have been struggling for a while. And, that's a sign to me that who owns college football, as Buddy Martin always says, it's the fans that own college football, and that's not going to change at all. And I think you're seeing it. The games that I've been to, several games this year, the crowds. I mean, the people are just saying, "Hey, we love the game. We know we've got the portal and we've got certain issues that are going on, but it's not going to be an issue." So when you're out going to the games, just look around you. It's the number of people that are inside the stadiums, and also the number of people that are tailgating outside. And I think that as we look at college football here is that the games and the interest and all, it's gonna continue to grow, and it's because we've got the great writers and the people that are out there telling the stories. I mean, we've had a lot of great discussions this week, and like I said, Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, he will get you fired up about the games, reporting on them and all. And remember, no matter what anybody tells you, 3 city blocks in 6 big corporations trying to tell us how to think, what to watch, from the time we wake to the time we put our head on the pillow, it's not working. It never will. We love college football. I find myself used to think, why would anybody want to watch Sam Houston State and Florida International University? Now I'm like, the more the better. I don't care. It's college football. Love to celebrate it. We are here 6 days a week, over 300 shows a year. So get ready. We'll get started. Tony Barnhart, there you go. Good morning. Appreciate you taking time to join us. And didn't send that 10-minute warning. That is my fault. I always make sure I do that. But I was in here right now. I couldn't get the camera. Couldn't find it. But that's my new set in the background that I had my friend Barnwood Brenda down in Batesville, Mississippi made it. It's the new SEC map. And you notice already what's the most visible one. It's not even officially a member yet. It's that big orange Texas in the background. The other half of the state is maroon, and then Oklahoma. But Tony, do you think when we get to the SEC Media Days next year, there's going to be a huge sign that says Texas welcomes, and in small print, the SEC, kind of like the episode of the Beverly Hillbillies when Uncle Jed was running for mayor? And Jethro had the banner flying around town, said Jethro Bodine says vote for, in small print, Jed Clampett.
Well, as they say, Rob, everything is bigger in Texas.
Yeah.
I remember Mac Brown telling me when he got the job at Texas, he was there with the then governor, George W. Bush. And Mac said, Governor, I don't really know what to say. He said, it's real simple, Mac. Just walk out there and say how happy you and Sally are to be in the great state of Texas. That's all
right.
you need. He said, that's what I did. And they went wild. So
yeah. And a native of Cookeville, Tennessee, man. He's one of the most likable coaches around. And hell, he's got a 6-0 North Carolina team. Mm-hmm. And, Florida State's 6-0. And you're in Atlanta. I'm over there quite a bit. My oldest daughter lives about a mile from the Battery. Man, golly, I didn't want to start talking about the Braves. That one hurt to watch. That was quick. But what's the ACC? That's a compelling matchup. And then we got Duke this weekend down at Florida State. So we'll start off with that and let you go.
There are a lot of good teams in that league. Mac Browne got his wide receiver back after much haranguing with the NCAA. Des Walker, that's made quite a difference. Obviously, in Drake May, he's got one of the best. He's certainly a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the country. So, and they handled Miami pretty good when they played them. So I think your ACC championship game is going to be Florida State and North Carolina, and there'll be a lot of interest in that. So we will see. And don't forget, the first set of rankings are coming out on October 31st, and it's going to be fascinating because there's so many teams that can lay claim to one of those top 4 spots. It's going to be fascinating to see where the committee not only picks teams but positions teams in that first set of rankings.
Yeah, it is. And Mr. Bill Hancock, I didn't realize this when we were talking to him at Media Days. I think for 19 years, he was with the basketball tournament. So
ran the Final Four. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, and he is one of the most gracious people, and him and Brett Daniels, you get him on the show. We had him on and I talked to him every day, and just, I dread the day that he retires. I think when you're gifted like that, you got a gift, you get one trip to the plate, keep swinging. He's really, really good. And he's very forthcoming when you ask him questions about it. How many people before the season would have thought that probably, one of the best games of the day besides Tennessee and Alabama is going to be at what Johnny Ballpark Franks said it. We're going to start it on this show. We're going to start calling it Bowden Campbell Stadium, but at Doak Campbell Stadium, Duke and Florida State. I have so many memories of great games in Tallahassee on a Saturday night, but this one, I think Duke basketball season, this is interesting.
It is interesting. Mike Elko's done an incredible job at Duke. You saw it at the beginning of the season. They lined up toe-to-toe with Clemson and beat them. Nothing fancy about that. And so I think this will be a really, really interesting game. Not sure how much Duke's quarterback is going to be able to go. That's going to be an issue. I like Florida State in this game, all things considered. But Mike Elko's done an incredible job at Duke.
All right, now the big one, third Saturday in October. And I love the history, the traditions, and the heroes. This is a good game matchup-wise. You've got Tennessee and Alabama, 2 of the top 4 tackles for loss, sacks per game teams. It's in Tuscaloosa. Joe Milton's not Hendon Hooker.
Right.
Jalen Milrose, not statistically. Bryce Young, who's got the advantage here besides the home field at Bryant-Denny?
I think that Alabama's better defensively. Tennessee's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but Alabama's very, very good. A lot of talent on that side of the ball, and I think they are becoming comfortable with Jalen Milroe. And the key there is always do not ask your quarterback to do more than he can do. All right. Yeah. Figure out those things he can do and do well and that he's comfortable with. Don't make the game too complicated. Now, there is going to come a time when a team is going to shut the run down completely and he's going to have to throw the ball 30 times. You want to avoid that if you can. Is Saturday going to be that game? Alabama is winning, but they're winning ugly, and sometimes eventually ugly football catches up with you. You have a day where you just can't score. So we will see. I like Alabama playing at home. I think the way that they're playing right now, and I think Nick Saban has actually done one of his better coaching jobs to figure out what this team can do and what it can't do.
I do too, and I think you couldn't get anybody to have taken the bet that Alabama could go on the road and win at College Station with 23 yards rushing.
Yeah,
it's a strange season, but I'm a big fan of Kevin Steele. I think he's one of the best coordinators around. I get the impression Nick Saban, people may not think it, but looks like he's having a lot of fun. I think he loves challenges and he's having fun coaching. And I think he's comfortable with Kevin Steele. This is the third time he's worked with him. I think that was the first coach he ever hired. I think he's having a lot of fun working through and listening to the criticism because Jalen Milroe is a super talented athlete. And, they're not running the ball like you like to, but you're seeing some retro games in the SEC this year. It's you're seeing like that Tennessee Texas A&M game last weekend. Defenses are starting to catch up to these RPOs, and it's a different game this year.
No, it is a different game this year. And you talking about Coach Saban. Every conversation I've ever had with him, people want to know when he's going to retire, when he's going to step away. And my answer is always the same. As long as he's winning and as long as he's recruiting at the level he believes he needs to recruit at, he's going to keep doing it. And the man loves to coach ball. Okay, that's what he likes to do. And this, all the other stuff that comes with the job is stuff that he has to do, and he understands that. But the man loves to coach. If this is a tremendous challenge to get this team, they're undefeated in the SEC, Rob. Okay, they haven't lost a conference game yet. People forget that, and so I think Nick Saban is going to be coaching for a long, long time.
I do too, and I tell you what gets me frustrated is when people say, I think he'll be 72 October 31st. I'm lucky that I got a mom that's 88 and a dad that's 95. And I'll call my dad after the show and I'll ask him what he's doing. And he will say, I'm going downstairs to work out. I mean, people as they get older, you got a choice. And I've been watching, guys that are like you get better with age. I mean, I don't even know, you're not even that old anyway, but you're getting better and more excited about the game. Mm-hmm. And I think you're more excited, Tony, just in your personal career. And by the way, you help so many quarterback and touchdown clubs with everything they do, but you're getting more excited working with your three partners, the media guys. I mean, I think you love writing. I think you're like an architect that has to travel all over the world chasing work, who finally gets to go back and design his friend's house at the lake. Just like you're having fun to me.
We are having fun. We are having fun, and as long as the game is fun, that's what it's all about. Now we're having to work our way through some issues in college football, but when have we not had to work our way through issues in college football? And we've always done it. It's always been a situation we've all adjusted. And it's like all the NIL stuff and the portal stuff. The smart coaches will work their way through it, and that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, and like you said, you made that comment a number of times. Not even the adults can screw up college football. Yeah, the crowds. I've been to a lot of games this year. They're incredible, and it's I call it the Grove effect. Give the credit to Ole Miss for really making tailgating is what it is, but it's always been big. And as Archie Manning says, the two fan bases that love tailgating in the Grove the most are Georgia and Auburn. Mm-hmm. But the crowds, 90,000. I was at that Auburn-Georgia game at Jordan-Hare. There were 90,000 in there, 50 or 60,000 tailgating outside. And Auburn, Georgia, there's probably more business deals put together between those two fan bases because it's a border war. But Buddy Martin's quote, who owns college football? The fans. I think the fans are making a big-time statement.
Well, the fans are making a big-time statement. And I've told, the other night I spoke in Selma, Alabama. And it was my 17th speech of the year. And the message I've delivered, every one of those speeches has been the same. I said, enjoy this year, enjoy this season, enjoy it as much as you possibly can, because next season it's going to be different. It's not going to be worse. It's not going to be necessary. It's just going to be different. So enjoy this season, get as much out of it as you can, and we'll adjust and get ready for next year when we'll have a 12-team playoff and 20 teams in the Big Ten. It is going to be different, and we'll all have to adjust. But the game's still going to be great.
It is, and like the interest, I've got one son in Charlotte, one in Memphis, daughter in Atlanta, one moved back from Richmond to Memphis. My kids are 23 to 34, four of them. 2 boys, 2 girls. They love college football. They watch these games. They want to go to the games. Maybe it's because they were raised around, I just love being there. I don't care who my school is playing. I'm there to celebrate it. And I'm catching myself. Buddy Martin asked on the Saturday morning roundtable, it was the greatest question. He goes, all right, everybody on here, raise your hand if you stayed up late last night and watched Colorado and Stanford. And all 5 of us did. And he goes, wow. He goes, man, isn't that great? Talk about that.
Well, what's interesting, how the game has evolved, Rob, is that the FCS or the FBS for college football playoff, the two-team BCS, which is what I'm reaching for. The BCS, for all the fussing and cussing that went on about the BCS, what it did beginning in 1998 is it turned college football from a regional game to a national game. And now people are staying up and watching Stanford and Colorado because they're interested, because they know how those teams can impact their team. And so it's the game has completely changed since we started the FBS in 1998. And now we go into a 14 playoff, and now we're going to a 12-team playoff. And the game has really evolved. And I'm telling you, I know there are skeptics about it. The 12-team playoff is going to be so much fun. We're going to be getting to the end. We're getting ready to wrap up October and go into November. And this would be the perfect year to have a 12-team college football playoff, because I don't think there's a great team on the board, but there are a lot of really, really good teams. You got 3 in the Pac-12 who are trying to make their way in. So I just think we're going to have so much fun talking about all these different teams. We'll be talking about at least 20 teams. When we get to November, we'll be talking about at least 20 teams, or if not more, that have a chance to make the playoffs. And that's going to be cool.
It is. And that's something, again, you know who Lee Fitting is with ESPN.
Of course.
I mean, and you remember a couple of years ago, he made a very prophetic statement. I haven't met him before, but I always follow him. He said, and I think it was him that said it, that with a 12-team playoff, the challenge right now is in November, how do we at ESPN keep the interest of the fans in the Deep South on the Oregon State-Oregon game, or the Apple Cup, Washington State, Washington, or Boise and, BYU, whatever. He goes, but when we go to the 12-team playoff, theoretically, every team in the top 25 in November is saying, so you're saying there's a chance.
You're saying there's a chance. Yep.
And I love that. I think it's great for college football. Now, I want our Southern schools. I am myopically, but the difference in you, Tony, is a lot of the national correspondents kind of fly by and, give you a cursory quick story. You are a national, one of the most respected writers in the country, but you can drill down locally anywhere. It's also because you've got a great team. Talk about the importance of what you've got. I mean, I have a team, a financial advisory team, in addition to doing this show. And man, when you got extra eyeballs and experience looking at a project, it's unbeatable.
Well, the guys who I co-own the website with, one guy was with the Boston Globe for 30 years. Another guy was with the Chicago Sun-Times for 25 years. I was with the AJC for 25 years, and some other. We've got some experience. We've seen everything. We've covered everything. We've been just about every big venue you can name, and yeah, it helps. It helps a lot.
Well, and when you think about college football, another one I watched the other day, I couldn't get away from Oregon, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the Bo Nix connection, and wish him nothing but the best. And somebody said, I've never seen a player that has transferred from a school to another school that has as much love as Bo Nix does from the Auburn fan base. But man, what an exciting game. Dan Lanning, one of my guests in the second hour, Matt Dean, his son Tyler is on the staff, second year with Dan Lanning. Absolutely loves him. Kind of talk about Dan Lanning, where he's from. I think he is very happy at Oregon.
Right. Well, it's a great, as you look around, you always look at a job. All right, do I have the resources I need to compete for a championship? And obviously, when you're talking about Oregon, the answer is unequivocally yes. The resources are there. I think Dan Lanning's a really good football coach. Now, his decisions could be subject to second guessing, but hey, welcome to the party. I mean, that's just the way it is. But he's obviously, we got to know him when he was at Georgia, and he's a great football coach. And yeah, you've got Oregon is just a spread. Now, what's life going to be like at Oregon as a member of the Big Ten?
Yeah.
That's what we don't know. That's the X factor. Everybody's going to have to travel, but it'll be interesting to see how Oregon sort of fares in that situation.
It will be. And now coming back down here into the SEC, you look at Florida. They're sitting there right now, number 3 or 4 in the country in recruiting. They're quietly building. What has your experience been with Billy Napier? I think he's a great recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a really good coach. And I think fans are somewhat, we're always a little bit delusional or crazy, but this road, you know, give him 3 or 4 years. I think he's going to have Florida a very successful program. What do you think?
Rob, it's the University of Florida. Okay?
Exactly.
You and me and 5 other guys in the parking lot could recruit for the University of Florida.
Yes.
It is the University of Florida.
Exactly.
The only issue that I had with the way Florida was running its program, I thought they got behind. I know they got behind from a facility standpoint. And all of a sudden, everybody's looking around these great facilities, and Florida doesn't really have anything like that. Well, they do now. They've done it, and that they've addressed that issue. I don't follow recruiting, but what the people I know that do, they're doing a very good job. And it's a question of being able to recruit quarterbacks and develop them, which is something that Billy Napier has proven that he can do. So I'm just saying, you know, Florida's going to get there because it's the University of Florida. And now, having said all that, that was a huge win the other night for Florida to find a way to win that game on the road. That's big, because this always happens when a new coach comes in. Now, this is Billy's second year. I get that. But there has to come a game where people go, oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yes.
Finally. And I think they're starting to get to that point. Let's see how they play against Georgia. That was an unusual game last week, South Carolina and Florida. Let's see how they do against Georgia. So let's see how they do against Georgia that doesn't have Brock Bowers.
Yeah. And again, I am not an orthopedic surgeon. I heard someone reference the tightrope or some type of surgical procedure.
Right.
The day I ever pull for a player to get injured on my team or another team is the day I'm going to go seek help. I hate to see a player injured. And Brock Bowers, in my opinion, is the best and most valuable player in college football.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you look in the Heisman thing, he's 9th or 10th, whatever. He'll be back in 4 to 6 weeks. I think Kirby Smart, and I know people from Tuscaloosa that knew him very well and still are very close to him. His 9 years there. They're Alabama people and they're Auburn people that think the world of Kirby Smart and his wife.
Right.
Kirby Smart said something about getting him back. He said, don't start that. It's that kid's health. I mean, people need to give credit to these coaches that they do care. And, you know, I heard the president, Dr. Moorhead of Georgia, talking. Kirby Smart and his wife have a classroom named after him. He's a graduate of that Terry College of Business.
Yes,
that you always do your pre. That's a pretty big damn deal.
It is a big deal. And
listen,
the smart coaches understand that ultimately you've got to take care of your players. And look, the surgery, by the way, this is the same surgery that Tua had.
That's it.
He suffered his ankle injury, and I think he was able to come back in 4 to 6 weeks. But here, you know what? It doesn't matter. Brock Bowers has a great future ahead of him. That's what they are there to protect. They're going to make sure he's going to be okay, and that he will not walk onto that field. And it's the same operation at Georgia as everywhere else. When the doctors tell you he can go, then and only then do you go, and you listen to the doctors. And you know, I don't anticipate seeing him play before the SEC championship game, and maybe not then. That's just a gut. That's a gut feeling. It's not based on any scientific evidence. But I do know they're not going to even put him anywhere near that field until the doctors give 100% that he's ready to go.
Yeah. And one more question before we let you go, because I know you got a big day ahead. And always thank you so much for taking time to join us. We really appreciate it. Love what you do for college football. I got to ask you right now, your top 4 teams just at the moment, because you're right. It's just hard to find that elite team. Georgia's number 1 until somebody takes them. And I saw somebody put a question. I think they'll fall in an off week. No way. I don't think that happens.
No,
But yeah,
no.
you're top four because they're the back-to-back national champion, and I don't know who's going to beat them.
Well, Rob, you think in terms of conferences. I mean, I have my little whiteboard speeches that I give. I was spoken Selma on Monday night. You look at it at this point, look at it in terms of conferences. All right. From the SEC, you can anticipate that it's going to be Georgia or probably Alabama if Alabama runs the table and beat Georgia. So the SEC will have a team in. The Big Ten will have a team in, and it's going to be Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. Penn State and Ohio State play this weekend. So there's a slot that's going to be taken up there. I think right now you can sort of anticipate that one of those Pac-12 teams is going to get there. But now you're down to the ACC. And you're down to the Big 12.
Yeah.
If Florida State goes undefeated, they'll have that win over LSU. All right. I think they get in. What's going to happen with the Big 12? What if Oklahoma goes undefeated? Do they get in there because they've beaten Texas? They may have beaten Texas twice, and that's an issue. So when you start thinking about your top teams that are going into playoffs, think in terms of conferences. Take the Power 5 conferences. Who is most likely to represent that conference? And then you still may have a very difficult decision to make who to leave out. The Big 12 champion, the ACC champion, the Pac-12 champion. Who do you leave out? That's why the positioning of the teams, when the first rankings come out on October 31st, where is Georgia? Is Georgia number one? They might have been number one if Brock Bowers hadn't gotten hurt. Do they stay number one? Yeah. What about Michigan? A lot of people like Michigan. And so it's not only the teams, but where the teams are going to be positioned in that first set of rankings.
Yeah. I mean, the interest, I love it because it's making everybody watch games all over the country. My son Wilson said about 3 weeks ago, he said, man, this is crazy. Every weekend's like March Madness opening weekend. That's a good thing. It's a good crazy. I love it.
It is. It's November. November is going to be a wild month because everybody's starting to play everybody. I mean,
yeah.
Let's just take Georgia, for example. All right. So Georgia's is off this week. They play the Gators. All right. The Gators shown some signs of life. I've been to that game a lot. I've seen a lot of weird stuff. Then Georgia plays Missouri, a team that's kind of underrated. Then they play Ole Miss and Athens, a team that can score a lot of points. Then they go to Tennessee on November 18th. And if the SEC East is on the line that night, it is going to be wild.
Oh, yeah. 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 We're going to Knoxville. Audrey's cousin Mark, like her brother, has the biggest tailgate in Knoxville by the Torch guy. So we're going up there. So if you're there for that game, you're going to come tailgate. Mark cooks brisket, about 100 pounds of it. It is right by the Torch guy. So we're going to make sure you come by there. Roman Harper came over the last year for the Alabama game, an hour. He goes, man, I'm coming back here anytime I can be here. But it's a big weekend because it's opening weekend of duck season here in Arkansas. But we got to be up there for that one. And Mark's daughter is a sophomore at Georgia. So she's got all 10 of his season tickets with her Georgia friends coming back home for the game.
There you go.
You got to love these Deep South rivalries. Tony, let people know, if you would, please, how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work. And again, thank you so much for taking time to share with our listeners and viewers.
Well, first of all, let me shamelessly plug my book. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, there it is. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Right there.
19 of Green was released this week. It tells the story of the 1970 Greene County Tigers. Yeah. I was a senior on that team. It's first team in school history to be integrated. Yeah. And it's a story about that time in our world, racial, social, all the upheaval that was going on, what it was like to play on an integrated football team in small town Georgia. And we're going to start our book signing event on November 1st in Decatur, Georgia, at the Georgia Center for the Book, and we're very proud of it. And it was a great thing that I got a chance to interview all my team. There were only 19 guys on the team, and I had a chance to interview there are 15 of us still alive, and I interviewed all of them, plus the living coaches and faculty members and things of that nature. So we're happy to have the book out and very proud of it.
Oh, absolutely. And we can order it on
Amazon. You can order on Amazon. It's the pre-order, but it's on the shelves now. But you can order on Amazon, and it'll get to you pretty quickly. I've already heard from a lot of friends and folks who have gotten the book on Amazon.
I'm going to buy a copy of it because, like you said, nothing's pulled people together in the South more than sports and football. And your book, I know you've talked about it a number of times on the show. I am damn proud for you to, no shameless plug here. I remember David Brenner used to do that on the Tonight Show. He goes, I'll be at the Sands Thursday through Saturday night, you know.
That's right.
Yeah, no, but this is going to be a book that I think everybody ought to read, like they ought to watch Sewanee 1899. And you played a big part in that because it makes you understand why we love the people in this game so much. Tony, thanks. Have a great day and look forward to our next visit.
All right, Rob, take care.
Yeah, you bet. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be back with Gary Harris.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. That was great stuff with Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. Always love having him on. And folks, do yourself a favor. Order this book. Tony's talked about it a lot on the show, The 19 of Green. And he did. He went out and interviewed all the living players from that team. But, I mean, time and time again, there are examples of how, you know, bringing blacks and whites together in college football and sports. It's nothing pulls people together. But that was a novel idea, you know, 50 plus years ago, but it changed everything. And Tony, one of the best sports writers and writers in the country, and also just a damn good guy over in Atlanta, a dog, and also knows the national picture of college football really, really, really well. Okay. Looking for Gary Harris to be here in just a moment from Title Insider TV. Will be joining us. Alabama and Tennessee, third Saturday in October. That's always, and it is this year, a special weekend. And this is going to be hell of a game in Tuscaloosa. I'm excited about it. Really, really excited about it. And I want to say that, make sure Tennessee and Alabama, both teams rank in the top 4 for sacks, tackles for loss, and whatever. And, you know, something's got to give quarterback-wise. Jalen Milroe is more of a dual threat quarterback than Joe Milton is. That's my opinion. Joe Milton's yards per completion and all are not as much as Hendon Hooker's were at this time last year. Of course, like I said, with Tony, Jalen Milroe is not what Bryce Young was last year. Okay. So it's a big difference, big difference in that. So, on this game, I'm not ready to make a prediction yet. I like to do that on Fridays, sometimes early Saturday morning on the show, but we're hitting pretty good on our picks. Wilson and I do these, my middle son, been doing it a long time. And again, don't get caught up in where the game is being played. It matters, but it's not all that matters. You can talk about matchups. What the matchups on game day are the matchups that are the most critical, okay? That's what you got to remember. It's game day matchups. And Tennessee coming into this game, their defensive line is really good. You should expect that with Rodney Garner as your defensive line coach, okay? You also have to think about Alabama. A lot of talent, their defensive line compared to Tennessee's defensive line on the interior, that's something we're going to talk with Gary Harris about. But I'll tell you this much. It doesn't make, to me, if I'm a fan, I want to know who can rush the passer the best. Is it Dallas Turner for Alabama? Another product of the Catholic school system in Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas, won 2 or 3 state championships. He looks better this year. Well, Kevin Steele is the defensive coordinator at Alabama. That's what you expect to see when Kevin Steele is running the defense. All right. That's Alabama football in this time. Gary Harris is joining us right now. Gary, hopefully that was today's link. You may have had an old link. I know these links change every day, but we got to have you on here. I am glad we got you on here because I said you were in, and I said I'm not seeing it.
It popped up, and I saw myself, and then it said stopped, and I thought, well, something's not right here. But I was
the marvels of live TV. You remember back when you used to have I remember when I worked for Channel 3 in Columbus, Georgia, we'd have Roger Manus and Reese Davis live from Knoxville, and some local, electronic or TV store would, Gary Harris TV and Electronics, this live shot sponsored by, and here they are. They're going, all right, we are live in Neyland Stadium in just a couple of minutes. The Tigers and the Vols, a top 10 matchup is underway. Let's talk to Auburn head coach Pat Dye. It was just good. And everybody, that 5-10 seconds of just dead air, everybody was just, and somehow it would work out. But now it doesn't really happen as much. And by the way, folks, everybody listening and watching, and God, we're blessed to have thousands of listeners and a growing audience. Do yourself a favor, watch Tighter Insider TV. I saw what you put out, you and Rodney Orr on Twitter. It's so easy. Keep doing that because tap on that link. You watch the whole episode of Tighter Insider TV. Talked about Alabama football, talked some soccer, talked about some basketball. But y'all, if you want to, know what's going on with your school, get as close as you can to the heart. Okay. Thank you, Gary, for what y'all do. And also you got a great radio show, and I've got the app on my phone, Tide 100.9.
Well, thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's stay busy and a lot to cover. I was thinking this morning, and we talked about this back in the summer, and maybe it's our age or maybe it's just the way it is. But we both said, you wait on football season, then it gets here. It's a snap of the fingers. Saturday, Alabama, Tennessee, that's going to be Alabama's 8th game of the year. So they're going to literally be 2/3 of the way through the season. Then it's a bye, and then it's that final 4-game stretch, and hopefully Atlanta for the SEC championship game, and then into the playoff or bowl. So it goes by so fast. Halloween is less than 2 weeks away, and then we're into November, and you have Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then we'll be New Year and looking toward the spring. So it's just unbelievable how fast football goes by.
It really is. Let's talk about this Tennessee-Alabama matchup. You've got 2 of the top 4 teams in the country in sacks per game, tackles for loss and all. Mm-hmm. And I'm not surprised with Kevin Steele, what he's doing with the defense at Alabama. Rodney Garner, defensive line coach at Tennessee. He's put 45 plus guys in the NFL. Who has the advantage on that front line and the front seven?
Well, I mean, I think they're both good. Like you said, it probably comes down to which offensive line plays the best as to who has the advantage. I think they're both, disruptive and solid against the run, get after the quarterback, have been decent in the back end. So I definitely think the defense for both teams kind of leads the teams. And, that's not the case, certainly it was not the case last year, 52-49. And, both quarterbacks threw for a ton of yards, and it was kind of, who had the ball last type of deal, just a crazy game. And, one that Alabama fans are not going to get over anytime soon. But Tennessee broke through last year, but this is a different Tennessee team. And, they're going to run the football, and they're going to run it well, and, try to get some stuff going in the passing game with Joe Milton, much like with Milroe. Tennessee's trying to coach him not to make mistakes and to be smart with the football. They're both big, strong, athletic guys that can hurt you with their legs. I certainly think lately, the last couple of weeks, Alabama has not run it as much with Milroe. There's just some chatter that he may not be 100%, but so there's similar type teams, really. They were similar type teams last year in a different way. Tennessee still wants to play tempo, but they don't do it nearly as often. So to answer your question, I think that both of these defenses are good, so that puts the pressure on the offenses to counter. And whichever offense, this is a pretty simple statement, but it's true, whichever offense has the best day is probably going to be the team that wins the game.
Offensive line for Alabama, offensive line for Tennessee. Cooper Mays back at center for Tennessee helps. Alabama's offensive line is really, really big, but are they as effective as you would like for them to be, or you think Nick Saban would
they're not.
Yeah.
When you give up 31 sacks in 7 games, Rob, you can't certainly not say that they're as effective as you want them to be. I mean, that's I think on a record pace for Alabama. That's over 4 sacks a game. Now, having said that, at times, yes, they've been effective. They're getting better. Left tackle has been a major issue with the true freshman Caden Proctor. They've also worked in, redshirt freshman Elijah Pritchett there. Both are really talented guys. They're talented across that front. I think that, Darian Dalcourt got banged up, and then Terrence Ferguson, who they were really high on at guard, he got a little banged up. So they went to, Jaden Roberts at right guard out of Houston, and he had never really even played, and he started against the Texas A&M Aggies and played well, and then played well against Arkansas. He's another big, huge, mammoth, physical guy. So I think at times they have been effective. I mean, but obviously the sacks are an issue. I don't think it's all on them. I think sometimes, Milroe has held on to the ball too long, or he's not stepped up in the pocket, or he's not done things to get the football out of his hand. But there have been a lot of times too when, particularly the left tackle has just gotten beat off the edge. We saw it with Landon Jackson last week, the really talented pass rusher who started out at LSU and transferred to Arkansas. He had a field day there, I think, with 3.5 sacks. So it's a combination of, mistakes on the offensive line, and then the quarterback not always doing what he needs to do with the ball. But in the run game, they're getting better. They've been more physical. They've used that size to their advantage. So I think their best football is still in front of them. And this may be the week that it all comes together. You never know with an offensive line that has that kind of talent. And and there's a couple of guys that have been good all year. I think that Latham and Booker are just they're bell cows. I mean, they're guys that they're having, I think, all conference type years. McLaughlin, we know the issues he's had at center, snapping the ball with, a hurt hand. And, that's been improved. And we know the left tackle issues, and now the right guard with, Dalcourt being out. But right tackle and left guard have been good, really all year. Those two guys are big, physical, strong, NFL linemen. So, it's not where they would like it to be. But I still think they feel like Saban said this week, we're not moving guys around. We're not going to take the right tackle and put him at left tackle. We're going to continue to try to develop the left tackle because obviously he believes he's good enough to get the job done.
Well, you look at the false start penalties, and that, I mean, again, I keep saying this, but you go on the road and you win at Texas A&M. I talked with Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, about this Tuesday. And you go on the road and only rush for 23 yards and still win. That, you're talking 1980s, retro Tide roll. This is an incredibly, it's a different year. But Tennessee, 20-13 at home against A&M last week. We're seeing some defenses are catching up to the offenses, Gary.
Yeah, and I think that the quarterback play in the league is not as good as it was last year or in years past. I mean, Alabama's had a run of 4 straight NFL quarterbacks, and I'm not saying Jalen Miller won't be an NFL quarterback, but it's they've dropped off there in terms of the passing game, and of course again sometimes the run game numbers are skewed a little bit. I don't understand again why sack yardage comes off your run total in college football. To me, sack yardage either should come off the passing total or it should just be a separate category. You shouldn't have a guy run, let's say you run for 122 yards in the game as a team and you got 40 yards in sack yardage and you get put down for 82 yards net rushing. So, Milroe took some sacks in that game. But, yeah, you're right, Rob. They managed to win at A&M with tons of penalties, some of them crucial penalties. There's 2 plays that happened the last 2 weeks that really changed the outcome of those games, even though Alabama won them. I think they would have won them comfortably. One was Braswell's blocked field goal being brought back for a touchdown for a blindside block on Dallas Turner. And then last week, it's 24-6. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I was there. Arkansas couldn't make a first down in the game. I mean, they hadn't done anything offensively. They had less than 100 yards of offense, and it's 3rd and 7 or whatever. You get off the field, they're going to be punting from deep in their own territory down 24-6 late in the third quarter. Game's over. And Jalen Key, away from the ball, gets called for a personal foul, defensive face mask. Got in a little tussle with a guy and jerked him to the ground. You can't, good teams don't do that. And Alabama managed to overcome it. But that game, I'm not going to say it was a blowout, but it was pretty comfortable, 24-6 late in the third quarter. And Arkansas doing nothing on offense. Suddenly you give a team second life. Not only they keep the ball, they get 15 yards. Then Jefferson's able to, scramble, and then they get down to the, in the red zone and they get a pass interference on downs, and it's 1st and goal at the 1, and they score a touchdown, and they're back in the game. All of a sudden, they've got life. You don't have that penalty there, and that game's going to finish a completely different way. You don't have that penalty on that touchdown on the blocked field goal to go at 14, and that's taken off the board, and they didn't even score. Offense didn't even score. And so instead of a 14-point game, it's a 7-point game. Those are the kind of things that, yes, they overcame them, but you can't keep doing those things. Certain penalties are going to happen, but dumb, stupid penalties have to stop. It's one thing to have an effort penalty. It's one thing that if you're blocking a guy, and you reach out and you get your hands inside a little bit and they call you for a hold or you make a mistake going full speed. But when you 15 yards behind the play just decide you're going to, even though I thought the official should have let it go, technically it was a penalty. You're just going to, push a guy to the ground because he had gotten in that was the guy, the quarterback's brother, Johnson's brother, who had gotten in the face of Malachi Moore. So I think Dallas Turner was like, I'm going to take a shot at this guy. Stupid. And then Jalen Key, who played a lot of football at UAB as a senior veteran player, I don't care what the guy's doing to you. You can't react. You cannot, those kind of penalties kill your team. And that's what bothers me more about this Alabama team than anything else, than the offensive line issues, than sometimes, mistakes that are made full speed, is some of the dumb penalties that they've received. Even the pre-snap penalties at A&M bothered me but didn't drive me crazy because they're going on silent count. You're in a hostile environment. They just had a tough day. But those kind of penalties that change the momentum of the game, at some point in time, you're not going to overcome those. So that's the disappointing thing to me the last 2 weeks is Alabama won those games, but they went right down to the wire, and they maybe didn't have to go down to the wire except for a couple really stupid penalties.
Well, the penalties, that part of it, I mean, last year Alabama had a lot of penalties. And remember that conversation?
And they had too many 2 years ago. And I've told you this before. I am a pro officiating guy. I got a lot of high school officials that are my friends here, college officials. I understand no official goes into a game saying we want to affect the outcome of the game. But I do think that there are some things in officiating that have gotten a little bit out of control. And what I mean by that is like a blindside block. I understand why that's in there. It's for safety purposes. So even targeting or even hands to the face of quarterback. But sometimes there's incidental contact almost. And by the letter of the law, yes, it's a penalty. But to me, there's got to be some common sense involved. I mean, Bryce Young took a couple shots in that Tennessee game last year. I'm surprised he got up for him. No penalty flag was thrown. Yet I'll see somebody's hand tap a face mask, and I mean tap it, just reaching out over an offensive lineman, and it's a 15-yard penalty. And I also think because Alabama's had so much success in the league offices in Birmingham. And Rob, you may absolutely disagree with me on this. And for so long, every Monday, the SEC office just got pounded with every other fan base in the league, sending in emails, clipping up videos of Bama privilege, and Bama gets all the calls, and you can't play Bama. You know, you got the 13th man on the field. I mean, I've talked to people that I know this, and it came, even if they weren't playing Alabama, you had every school in this league because they were sick of Alabama dominating the SEC, just lighting the SEC office up every Monday. Alabama this, Alabama that. So to get to my point, I don't think there's anything overt about officiating, but I think if you're an official, well, maybe in the last couple of years when you've called an Alabama game, that's been in your head. You're like, you know what? I'm not walking out of this game somebody accusing me of being pro-Alabama. So it's almost like it's anti-Bama privilege. Is that it seems like if there's a questionable call, it's going to go against Alabama. That's been my take, and I've watched every game, for years. So, but that's no excuse. That's something that as I get back to, that's something Alabama needs to clean up. The away from the play penalties, Jermaine Burton, taunting penalties that he's gotten and things like that. So this has been at times an undisciplined football team, as you said, going back to the last couple of years. So, something they're trying to work on every week. And, I get fans, call my show frustrated. Well, why can't Saban? Well, I promise you they're trying, everything that you
they don't like it.
See, during the week, they're trying to stress, but stress this to guys, but in the heat of battle, sometimes guys make poor decisions.
Well, I mean, I go back to a family friend of ours, Joe Pipkin, who officiated for 33 years, big time Southern independent college football games, Auburn, FSU, Penn State, Alabama, Miami, South Carolina, whatever. He would do those games. I remember one time, Auburn, Florida State. Think about this schedule. Auburn played at the end of the season, the last part of the season, they played Florida, Florida State, Georgia, and Alabama. 4 in a row. Florida State was an off week. Auburn got killed in that game, 34-7. I was down on the sideline working for CBS that game in college, and Mr. Pipkin came by and didn't even say hi to me. He kind of made me like, golly, after the game, he said, I cannot show any, like I even know you. That's a true professional. And so I know, and I sat in the men's grill at the club many a night, and he explained to me how Jimmy Johnson would fly him down during the week to work in practice to help them cut down on officiating. So the true officials, Gary, I love what you said. They're hard asses. Okay?
Got blinders on.
About doing it right. Yeah. And I also love what you do covering high school football. And what was the Gordo and Reform? Was that the big rivalry a couple of weeks ago?
A few weeks ago, yeah. Gordo and Pickens County is a big one, and then we had
what's it called? What's the name of it?
The 8 Mile War.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
talk about high school football over there on Highway 82 to the Mississippi line.
Yeah, all those communities are football crazy. I mean, you get up into Reform and with Pickens County and Gordo and on up into Fayette and on up into Selligent, Joe Cribb's hometown and Selligent's really good this year. And Selligent's at TA Tuscaloosa Academy this week. So we're now into the point in the season where we're with these playoff matchups and playoff seedings are getting set. And one thing I'm excited about is tomorrow night. We were actually having real fall weather. I know you are in Memphis as well. Yes. And it's, tomorrow night people are going to have to wear a pullover or a light jacket when they go out to the football games. But no, this is, that's one thing. And I know we're wrapping up on time here. I got to get ready for my show. But I'll say this in closing. All the changes in the world, all of the stuff that's going on and you go into one of these, and I know you feel this way, Rob, you go into one of these small communities on a Friday night to high school football game, and it's a time warp. I mean, it might as well be 1981, my last high school football season, or 1985 or 75. It's a reminder of what America is about and what the South is about. Everybody's still at the high school football game. It's something that the phones are put away a little bit and people enjoy that Americana, and it's great. And I love it. And we'll have another hour of it tomorrow night at 10:30 on WVUA 23. Hey, great stuff, Rob. Got to go, man.
Tell them how they can follow you.
At Gary Harris _ WVUA on Twitter /X. Gary Harris, WVUA 23 on Facebook. I would love for people to follow me there. Tide109.com and WVUA23.com. Thanks, buddy.
You bet. Thank you. Great stuff always with Gary Harris. Let's take a quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Browne back here, HR-2 on Sidelines this Thursday. And look, great stuff, Gary Harris, the 8 Mile War, Gordo and Pickens County. And Pickens County is where Reform is over there on Highway 82 in West Alabama. I'm with Gary. Love it. Celebrate it. We love high school football. And go to games every chance you get. It's an awesome, it's a throwback. Again, he's right. People put the phones up to some extent. See my hat I'm wearing? Red River Ford Toyota. Great folks over there. Justin Wynn, the general manager. Rusty Howard, Greg Smith out on the sales floor. Stacy Alford, Nate, Randy, Brandon, Cecil. Great people there to serve you anytime you are looking for a car, truck, or SUV. Fords and Toyotas in Wynne, Arkansas. 45 minutes from Memphis. But go to the website, redriverfordtoyota.com. They will deliver anywhere. You see those trucks on the interstate, on the highways all over the country. They are delivering to Jacksonville, to Tampa, Dallas, Memphis. Of course, you can go over there and get it. It's quick. Nashville, Tuscaloosa, anywhere you are listening, they can deliver the vehicle to you. Barney in Oxford, Alabama. When the Tide held Ole Miss to 10 points, I knew this team was going to Atlanta. Got to have confidence. But Kevin Steele's defense will get after you. They will bring adversity to you. They will be your adversity. They're not waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're not waiting till they got a problem to react. They're going to hit you first. Now, Tennessee, this matchup, going to be a good one. 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. CBS game of the week. It will be, I think it's going to take a full 60. I agree with what Carl in Benton, Arkansas said. I think that's where they filmed the movie Sling Blade, Carl. I'm not stupid. Bama has the edge with defense. Turnovers will decide this game. The discipline part of it, the last few years, the penalties for Alabama, you have to be careful with having so much talent that you neglect the details. You still got to file your taxes. You got to pay attention to the details, Penalties are discipline issues. That's what you got to do. It takes to me, if you can't fix the penalties, you're gonna have you're gonna dig yourself in a hole. Okay. Now, speaking of discipline, I was just saying the little things, avoiding penalties. You got to file your taxes. You need to use a certified public accountant, somebody that's a tax professional. I mean, you got to be careful. A bookkeeper is great, but do they understand all the tax law? Discipline, penalties, they usually come from guys not paying attention. John Hartwell, AD at ULM, is on with us right now. And John, we've had Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, on in the first hour. Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. A lot of fun conversations about football, about high school football, where we're going. My wife, Audrey, yesterday, we were out hiking, and she said, one of the ways the adults are going to take over America and the world is we're going to write letters and communicate what we're doing. And we're going to not use phones, and we're going to write in cursive, and they're going to have no idea what's going on. But I'll say, bringing in Matt Dean from over at beautiful Rhodes College in Memphis. But man, I think what we're seeing now in college athletics is that the people forget. This is what people have forgotten. The ones trying to write this narrative is that these colleges, universities all over the country in all 50 states are made up of people. Okay. People make the difference. And people, the fans, love college football, love college athletics. And I love, and I said this in the first hour, watching the game like last night, I think it was last night, Sam Houston State and Florida International University. I am so excited. I don't care who's playing. It's college football. It's college athletics. And somewhere out there, it means a lot to a lot of people. So that's what we got going for us. No matter what anybody says, interest is only going up. And Matt, it at Rhodes. It, John, at ULM. People just love to be there. Yeah, they want to win the game, but they love being there around all their friends. And again, think about how much business is done on the golf course, in the duck blind, or on a football Saturday. Can you put there's no way to guess it, but what we've seen so far out of this season, y'all give me your direction you think college football is going. Start with John. Go ahead and tackle that one first.
Yeah, obviously fan interest is really high. I think one of the things that makes this season so intriguing and has generated such interest is you've got some teams that aren't necessarily always the elite. It's not two or three teams that could make a run at the CFP this year. It's probably realistically 8 or 9 that could, and I think that's creating some more interest, and even those teams that or those games that don't involve CFP contenders. You've got some great college football, like you said last night, FIU and Sam Houston State, a couple of overtimes, and to be able to turn that on a Wednesday night, in my mind, helps further the brand of college football. And I know you're going to have some purists out there that say, well, hey, it's not played on Saturday, and are those guys really going to class and all of those things? Yeah, I promise you those football road trips are, they're not, 36 hours of debauchery for football teams. They are business trips, and, academics are being kept up with. So I think those are very positive things about our game right now. And we can get into talking about it a little bit more. I'm not sure the congressional hearing the other day in D.C. that involved some players from college athletics. They involved, from there in your backyard, Rob Walker Jones, who runs the Grove Collective for Ole Miss. There were some pretty pointed questions from the congressional panel there, and I'm not sure that all the questions were answered. I probably feel less comfortable after that hearing the other day about Congress moving something forward from an NIL perspective that helps us out. But that shouldn't overshadow what's happening in college football right now.
Before we go to Matt, I did not see that hearing. Tommy Tuberville talks a lot when we have him on, and he used to be on almost every week. Well, he became a senator, and he's just kind of busy. But he said that not a day goes by that he doesn't get multiple calls from college coaches, friends he's known over the years, from around the country going, we got to do something. Tommy Tuberville isn't one of these big government guys, but I'm going to throw it at you, Matt. We need y'all two would be great. But y'all two and Rick Neuheisel together, to go in there and fix it, because I think you would have the meeting at a round table where everybody had to stand like they do in the Army with no chairs. It'd be done in 10 minutes or less. Matt, jump in on it. And then we're going to talk about that Oregon game in just a minute. We're not going to I watched it. It's pulling people eyeballs all over the country to the West Coast. But anyway, talk about that, what John got to first, if you would, please.
Well, it's good to be back, guys. And I just think, getting to the conversation with Senator Tuberville, I mean, I think change is hard. One of the things my son can hard has been from certain, let's just use football, but it's no different in basketball, all right? Staffs to adjust to the whole NIL transfer portal concept. Some staffs have adjusted really well. Some staffs have not. And, going back to what John said earlier, I agree 100%. I mean, we got so much parity at the top right now in college football. We're having fun now. Just think next year when we got 12 of these teams we're going to put in the playoff, how great that will be. This is the last year, I believe, of 4, correct? And,
correct.
I'm having a hard – someone's going to get left out this year that's a really, really good college football team that could win it all. Now, in the past, we always haven't felt like that 5 or 6 team that was looking on the bubble inside could win it, but they thought maybe they could have been a 4 seed. I'm telling you, after what I saw, and I'm a little biased. I have a son that's on their staff. That was an unbelievable college football game. A couple decisions were made that were questioned, which happens in coaching. And the thing I like the most is after the game, the head coach, Dan Lanning, said, hey, it's on me. Maybe I should have taken the points in the first half. We had 3 fourth downs. If we get one of the 3, we win the game. We went over. That usually doesn't happen. So there's no doubt that college football and college basketball are in a tremendous spot right now with fan interest. But going back to your point about Senator Tuberville, I just think some of the folks that have been doing this for a long time don't want to change how they do their daily business. And also, in fairness to these guys, there's so much. It's nonstop. I mean, you have to have some limitations on how long the portal is open. I know we're going towards that direction. The 2 signing dates are problematic. It's like they never get any time off, it seems like. So I do empathize with him. I'm going to tell you, there are certain programs that have not handled this very well. And I'm not going to throw shade at Clemson, but you can make a direct correlation that when this started, we haven't seen the dominant Clemson that we saw 5-6 years ago. Is that fair?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're not changing. And John, going back, and I like this comment from Gil in Batesville, Mississippi. I find myself staying up really late watching games I didn't used to care about. Kind of reminds me of that line, Nicolas Cage in the movie Raising Arizona. I find myself going by convenience stores on the way home that are not on my way home. Remember, because he used to love to rob convenience stores. But, man, I was up. It was so funny. I said this to Tony Barnhart in the first hour, Mr. College Football, when Buddy Martin asked on the round table. You remember John the other day? He goes, all right, everybody, raise your hand if you stayed up late last night watching Colorado and Stanford, all 5 of us. He goes, wow, this is what's happening, and it's great for college football. I like to believe in supreme confidence. John, when you were at the Citadel, if your commanding officer, your squad leader said, we need to be doing this or that in the morning at 0500, it's kind of like, if Matt said, John, tomorrow is Easter, oh, my God, you better dye your eggs. I don't care if it's, October. You got to have that kind of confidence in what's happening. And the people you are with.
Those orders weren't up for discussion or up for, up for a majority vote.
That's right.
But yeah,
quorum.
Hey, you talk about those games. I've got to point out one tonight, and I'm going to carry the Sun Belt Conference banner a little bit.
Absolutely.
You've got James Madison at Marshall tonight, and James Madison is in an unusual situation, and there was actually an appeal that the NCAA turned down. So James Madison is in year 2 of their transition from FCS football to FBS football. I'm still old school. I call it 1AA, but
I do too.
FCS is the proper terminology. But James Madison is 6-0 right now. I mean, they are a really, really good football team, but they are ineligible for postseason. I'll put an asterisk to that. And they're ineligible to participate in the Sun Belt Conference championship game between the two highest ranked teams. The asterisk there is if there are not enough 6-win / bowl eligible teams, then they would be, made eligible to participate. Really good football program. And quite frankly, they make that transition from being FCS to FBS. They jumped into the Sun Belt Conference and immediately are at the very top of our league in terms of budgets. Their budget's about $65 million, which again is at the top of the Sun Belt. Here is the key to that, though. People say, well, gosh, here's a school making that transition. How do they have that much budget? $47 million out of a total budget of $65 million is institutional support, whether that be student fees, auxiliary fees coming into them. So they've got handed to them on a silver platter, $47 million a year. So no wonder they're pretty darn good. And oh, by the way, their facilities are really nice too. But that's how they have been able to jump in and be, and obviously they were successful at the FCS level too. They won at least 2 or 3 national championships at that level. But that's a game worth watching tonight because Marshall is 4-2. They're a good program too. But James Madison is legitimately a potential top 25 team.
Yeah, up in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And you know what? I'm still D1, D2, D3. But one thing we do know is look at the interest that the Division II, Division III playoffs, Matt, have generated. And you understand the playoff format, Matt, way better than anybody else. But when we go from 4 to 12 teams next year, I mean, must-watch TV, well, now that they're leaving the conference, but Oregon State and Oregon, the Civil War, the Apple Cup, Washington State, Washington. I hope they're going to continue to play, but, there's going to be – those teams will be some of them in the Big Ten and the other ones staying behind in the Pac-12. But I love it. It's going to just – make people more interested. They're not going to check out in late October.
No, and I look at this year, and John, you can correct me, but I look at a team like Air Force, who I think is having a pretty good year. And if this was next year, I've seen some predictions where they would be in the top 10 and make that top 12. You know what I'm saying? It's just going to make it. I think it's going to be great. Now, there are some purists that say the beauty of the 4 is that you start your playoff in basically week 1 or week 2 when you have your first really tough non-conference game or conference game. But I just think this opened up so much more opportunity. The fans are going to love it. TV's going to love it. Obviously, there's more money to be made. And, I really feel for Oregon State and Washington State, because you look at Oregon State right now has got a really, really good football team. They're a one-loss team. Washington State is 4-2. They play at Oregon this week. They had kind of they lost to UCLA 2 weeks ago and then lost a really bizarre home 44-6 game in Arizona this week. Jed Fisher's done a nice job with Arizona. So, I mean, I don't know what they do because, one of the things that Chip Kelly said, and I'm a little bit off the board today on this topic, but when the Pac-12 went to the Big Ten, he thought, what are we doing? We don't need to be putting softball teams in the middle of this mess. Let's still regionalize our conference and make football independent. And I think that's an interesting discussion. We could have several hours on that topic alone and what that would look like and how you would do it. But because they're chasing the money, so to speak, in the TV contracts, we've broken up in historical as Bill Walton calls it, the Conference of Champions.
Well, you know what? I think, and I'm going to ask Matt, John, this is what is going to happen with Oregon State, Washington State, the Mountain West, all those conferences. But you know what? And Matt, you just alluded to it in your comments. I think that suddenly with Arizona State and Arizona and Utah and Colorado, or as some people in the Midwest call it, Colorado. It's Colorado. That's how I say it. So that's how, so it is spoken, so it is said. But all of a sudden, there are going to be people in the Midwest, in Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas that give a damn about Arizona and Arizona State. I think what's happening is, you improvise, you adapt, you overcome. Heartbreak Ridge, great quote. And Chris Lynch's father was a mechanical engineer, my friend, Georgia Tech grad, invented this thing that turned off the gas pump. He was a mechanical engineer, Georgia Tech grad, hell of a rambling wreck. Used to say PTE, push through and execute. What's starting to happen is people are starting to pay attention to what's going on out west.
Yeah.
I think what was going on, John, you lived out there 7.5 years. I know your wife and you missed the winters in Logan, Utah. Right now, you'd probably be shoveling snow. But you know what? You could get you some gear to stay warm at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, which I'll be at later today, getting some hunting shirts made for the Cherry Farm, established 1846. But I'll tell you what, people, John, from living out there, Matt, you've got a son at Oregon. I think it's good that eyeballs are starting to look out there again, because as crazy as this sounds, you made me think, Matt, we were starting to just write that part of the country off, and that's a good thing. Just like John taking his experiences from out west and having been in the South at Troy and Georgia State and Ole Miss to ULM, and he's going, that's great how y'all used to do things, but that ain't how I'm going to do it. Okay. I think we're going to figure this out. I think we're doing it a lot quicker than we thought we would.
Yeah, I think so. Back on your question and the reference to Washington State and Oregon State, I don't think anything is a slam dunk, but I think the most likely scenario, and I know folks at one of my previous stops are a little concerned about this. I think the most likely scenario as we look at it today is Washington State and Oregon State joining forces with probably the top 6 or 8 Mountain West teams. And, when I say top, that's not necessarily competition-wise, top to bottom, but maybe media markets. I mean, there are a lot of factors that go in there. So the San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State, Boise, UNLV, Air Force, possibly one or two others, and then maybe looking to attract some of the westernmost American Athletic Conference teams, be it a Tulane, a Memphis, somebody like that. Because I think what they're trying to do behind the scenes is to accumulate, the SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10 are kind of set, at least for today. I say kind of on purpose.
Yes.
But I think behind the scenes, you've got the Pac-12 or the remnants of it in Washington State and Oregon State trying to assemble the most attractive, the best of the rest, if you will. Again, it's not necessarily competition-wise or where they stand today, but it's media markets, it's alumni base, it's all of those factors together to at least present what they believe is a viable case to preserve a potential, Power 5 school, as opposed to it just drifting to being the Power 4 with SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and then everybody else kind of jumbled in there together. So I think that's probably the most likely scenario.
Yeah, and Matt, Tyler's out there in Oregon, second year. Dan Lanning, hell of a coach, got a lot of great things happening at Oregon. and I think we've even talked about it on the show, put football on a separate island and make it national. That's fine. But all other sports, keep them in their traditional conferences just for travel purposes. You think we got anybody that would be willing to say that makes decisions at the NCAA? Let's do that. Makes too much sense. I'm sorry. I apologize.
The NCAA is a little bit of transition with the new leadership, and they have a lot on their plate. And I don't know. John's a much larger expert in this than I am with his stops and his Division I experience. But for me, as a Division III guy, we've always had a playoff system. And it's so even in football we have 16. So. Or maybe it's 32 now. I can't remember. Regardless, it's just one of those situations where it makes a lot of sense. But when you start having West Coast teams play in the ACC, West Coast teams play in the Big Ten, it draws a lot of interest. And I agree with Roger, a lot of new opportunities on the screen comment there. But it also puts a lot more on the student athletes. I mean, I remember my coaching days, and travel is hard, even if it's regional. Okay, especially in basketball, we were playing Friday, Sunday doubleheaders. Saturday was a travel day to get from A to B. It was also a prep day because most of your week was spent on prepping for A, and now you got to prep for B. I think we missed the boat a little bit, and that's why I think you see people always wonder why. You look at USC this weekend, and Notre Dame took it to them. Well, first of all, Notre Dame was at home. Secondly, Notre Dame's a really good football team. And thirdly, you travel across the country, you don't always play your best. So even though I'm excited about some of this opportunity for a bunch of new rivalries or new matchups, I think we're going to see it take a toll on the road teams. It's going to be really difficult to perform at your best, when you're coming from Seattle, Washington to, whatever, Nebraska to Illinois. Whatever the schedule may be. I just think it's going to be tough.
But I remember last spring you were going up to New York with the women's lacrosse team from Rhodes.
That was the playoffs. That was playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs.
And not a regular season game.
Right.
But, I mean, when you travel, and we all know people who travel a lot. I remember my dad as a kid used to say, hell, I didn't know where I was half the time. He's, till I woke up in the morning and read the paper because you get in at 11 or 12 at night and you're flying and you go into your room and you can't go right to sleep. And then about the time you get to sleep, it's time to get back up, get onto a meeting, and all. But travel will kick your ass if you're not conditioned for it. People will adapt. U.S. military owns the night. NVGs, night vision goggles and all. We dominate. We practice it. Repetition is the mother of all skill. John, your experience at Utah State, okay? You played, all over. What's the typical buildup? I mean, the advance, the 18-wheeler for the football game full of all the gear leaves about Tuesday or Wednesday. It's a big logistical operation, and it all starts with you and your team around you.
Yeah, going cross country, has a lot of moving parts, not just.
Yeah. And it does. John, you're muted there. Come back to us. John, John, can you unmute yourself? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, John, your mic's not connected. John, if you can get that connected. Okay. Whoops. Matt, can you hear us?
Sorry. I had a little technical difficulty there. You talk about the logistics of going cross country. It's more than just the team itself going, especially as it relates to football, the equipment truck, all of those types of things. And a lot of coaches in football, which is a little easier because you're playing, 12 regular season games as opposed to men's or women's basketball where you're playing 30 plus. They like to use as a rule of thumb, if they're going 2 time zones or more, they like to try to go on Thursday. So a lot of times you see these teams, if it's a Saturday game, they'll practice Thursday and then leave after the game, after practice on Thursday to go on those trips. But like like we were talking about, when you've got, either the back end of a road trip, or if you've been on multiple road trips, a lot of times there is a negative impact to your ability to perform if you've had a long trip, or if you've had a short turnaround time, maybe 4 or 5 days for one of those midweek games that don't allow a team to necessarily perform at their premium.
Rob, I'm going to throw someone else in there. I'm going to go back to USC and Notre Dame. What's interesting is you're kind of seeing a preview of what's going to be like for USC moving forward, right? They're going to be playing in the Big Ten. Like John mentioned, they're going to be going 2 time zones, heck, maybe sometimes 3. It's crazy. But, can you imagine USC playing in Iowa City in November in the snow? They're not the same speed-driven team they are on the turf. And, you're hearing a lot of rumblings too. And trust me, I have no knowledge of this. But, will Lincoln Riley eventually end up in the NFL? Will USC change in a few years too? I mean, I don't know. I don't have any knowledge of this. But with Caleb Williams out there, probably the number 1 pick in the draft if he comes out, could his head coach follow? And I just think there's a lot of moving parts. And it goes back to my point that college football interest is at an all-time high. And the SEC was the footprint that really dominated so long. And now if you look at the SEC right now with Bo Bauer's injury, and I don't know if he's going to return or not in time for the SEC championship game or the CFP, how does that make Georgia different? I mean, their next 4 games, you got what? Tennessee's in there. I think they play Florida's in there. Missouri now, it's 6-1 is a really good football team. I think they play Ole Miss still. I think Ole Miss can give anyone problems on any given day. The SEC has probably more parity in it right now, guys, than we've seen in a long time. And Georgia still may run the table on the East without Bo. I could be totally wrong here, but that guy's a top 5 draft pick in my book. And you take anyone off your football team that's a top 5 legitimate draft pick, and he changes the dynamic of your offense or defense, whatever.
Yeah, everything's changing. I mean, I like these comments by Raymond in Huntsville. College football defenses have caught up with the RPO offenses. It's been the modern day wishbone, and that's just the full. What is the RPO like the wishbone? Put the defense at conflict with itself. Have a lot of eyes moving around. Lincoln Riley's defense. They don't play defense.
No.
Southern Cal beat them 48-20. I think what's happening now is everybody was doing the same thing. It's a copycat game. John, there's different football. Like Terry Bowden is regarded as a great play caller. He's got to get better players in there. He knows that. He's going out there to get them. Transfer portal is now 5 years old. Okay, what does he say about the portal? And how does he and his staff go about trying to take advantage of it? Are they fans of it or not?
Yeah, great question. Hey, I do want to make a comment on Raymond and Huntsville's comment there, though. He's exactly right. And here, the quarterback position has always been important. I mean, that's the trigger right there. Yeah. But with Raymond's observation there, which is spot on, the decision-making ability and the athleticism of the quarterback position is so important. And, is it all about talent level? Is it experience? Is it a combination of the two? Is it the ability on the fly or on the split second? You can oftentimes you see really good quarterbacks as they are waiting there, whether in the shotgun or under center, kind of surveying the defense, and the defense is, hopping around a little bit. But the ability to have a quarterback who is savvy enough to make split-second right decisions. They're not going to make 100% of the right decisions, but enough times and at a high enough percentage to give you the best opportunity to win is so key. That the quarterback position, in my mind, has become even more important. Now, as it relates to having the players, and again, goes back to quarterbacks and at our level at ULM, you're going to lose some people to the portal. It's inevitable to some places, and we have a collective, and we're able to do, our collective is able to do some things for some of our student athletes. But I'd be, lying to you if I said it's on the level with the Grove collective or some other collectives at Power Fives out there. So we're going to lose some players on an annual basis to people who are going to say, hey, I think the grass is greener on the other side. But on the flip side, it's going to allow us to get some players too, because one thing that remains constant, and I know maybe that threshold has changed, but student athletes, they want the opportunity to be on the field. They don't want to be practice squad players their entire career. They want the opportunity, because the vast majority of them have the end goal and the aspiration and the drive to play on Sundays. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Reality says, hey, only about 1.5% of those guys playing FBS football ever play one snap in the NFL. So get your education, and we'll continue to stress that. But all of those kids say, hey, I'm never going to get the opportunity to be in the NFL if I don't see the field in college. So that's going to give opportunities to folks at our level too. And it makes it so important from a recruiting standpoint, because it used to be, hey, you evaluate high school talent. You have several coaches involved with that. You have a handful looking at the junior college ranks too. But now you have some of these programs who everybody in America, every college player in America is recruitable too, because you don't know when they may be going into the transfer portal. So the analytics and film and evaluation is so key. And that's why you see some of these staffs, growing leaps and bounds to be able to evaluate potential student athletes on your roster.
You're right. Everybody is recruitable. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back, getting a lot of comments along what we're saying. Raymond in Huntsville, my boy Raymond. I mean, he's right. And so both sides have to change. Service academies have long run the wishbone, and now some of them have started to change what they do. Just when you think you got it figured out, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back to figure it out.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Back here with us, the eternal crystal chandelier, the crystal collection in the background. With Matt will be back momentarily. John Hartwell at his desk down in Monroe, Louisiana, and it definitely feels like football season right now. It's gorgeous outside. I think it's going to be, Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa said, tomorrow night high school football. You're going to be wearing pullovers and down jackets and stuff. It's not just fleece vest weather. It's just football weather. It feels good. I think the mornings up here in Memphis in parking area, high 40s, low 50s. I think we're going to be maybe in the 80s today, but you can feel fall working its way in. John, I imagine if you were out in Utah right now. It'd be different. But that's why people love living in Utah, because it snows a lot. They got pretty damn good skiing. All right, comments coming in here. I like this one. Martin in Brownsville, Tennessee. And by the way, Audrey and I, if you watch the show True South on SEC Network, they did a deal, Brownsville, Tennessee, one of the episodes. It's Miss Helen, her barbecue place there in Brownsville, up off the square. We went there. We saw it on True South. It's really, really good. I mean, and they cook over a big, huge, and they've got a, part of the building there, huge, ginormous pit. You could probably put a dozen hogs on it at once, simultaneously at the same time, JW. You got to be kidding me. But anyway, Matt, the scores in the SEC games. A&M and Tennessee 20-13 last week. 24-21 Alabama over Arkansas. You're seeing and I'm not even going to get into Auburn, and they're setting back offensive scores decades. I mean, their offense is worst or next to last worst in the SEC. And Hugh Freeze is regarded as a great play caller. He's got Philip Montgomery calling the plays and Kent Austin being used as an analyst. But I agree. I mean, defenses are catching up. What do you think we're going to do next to try to fool people?
Well, you're also talking to an Iowa fan. Iowa just won a college football game, 15-6, throwing for 37 yards. Think about that, guys. I mean, Iowa is 6-1. They lead the Big Ten West, and their quarterback, God love him, it's just not a really. But they had a running back, LaShawn Williams, rush for over 175 yards. So I guess that's a good thing. But it was intriguing because I watched a little bit of Tennessee in the Aggies on Saturday in the Go Vols. And I got to tell you, 20-13 is not your typical Josh Heupel score. But I will tell you this: I think John's done this. We're paying coordinators over $1 million and sometimes $2 million, and they're figuring it out. And they've got so much talent on both sides of the ball. I'm going to tell you what: if I was a head coach of football, I definitely would want to run an offense that, I was a little up tempo, but on the flip side, I would be careful because you sometimes wear your defenses out. And you have to have, we always talk about all phases of the game. You have to play complementary football. And that's where I think Georgia's so good. We sit here and I mentioned Bo Bowers is out, but man, their defense with Kirby Smart is always lights out, and they can run the football. They got these big NFL prototype offensive linemen, and they don't mind winning a game 24-17. But I want to give a little credit to Sam Pittman, and I could see the emotion in his press conference. That's 5 losses in a row. They played Alabama in Tuscaloosa really well. 24-21. You can see how painful it is for him right now trying to figure this out. But that's what the SEC does to you. It's just it's a well-coached league with the best high school recruits in the country. Bottom line.
It is, and the coaching part of it, John. Your typical day, what's your typical day? 15, 18 hours, kind of like a Saturday for a sports anchor? I mean, honestly, a lot of times I don't hear back from you till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I know your wife has a successful practice, what she does, and I bet you do a lot. I know Audrey is my lieutenant, besides my mother, and then my older sisters who know everything. But seriously, the amount of time, I like this. This discussion is really good. You've got 17 coaches that lean on you. And I know every now and then, you're running late or you can't be on the show because you've got something. Don't ever worry. I mean, I totally get that. By the way, y'all like my set in the background there? That's the new SEC. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Rob. It looks like a piece of driftwood that may be washed up on the eastern shore in Mobile Bay there. That's got the SEC footprint on there. But it must be something really special if it supplanted the Ham's beer sign.
I know. And it is because Brenda down in Batesville, Mississippi, my friend, makes these. And she's got barnwood and cedar and wood all over their farm, she and her husband. And she made that for me, hand carved it and painted it. That is a piece of, golly, I think that's cedar. And she did that by hand. And it's already got Oklahoma and Texas. And I told Tony Barnhart, it's, no irony at all here that the biggest thing on there is Texas. And so when we have SEC Media Days in Dallas next year, I'm sure there'll be a ginormous sign that says, Texas says, welcome SEC. It's going to crazy out there. And you think about the Texas State Fair with big text, 3 weeks long. Anything that ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled, we can fry it. But John, I can't help but bring this up, Matt. This was sent to me by John this morning. The eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant, 7'4" and 424 pounds, wrestles at Mobile's Expo Hall Tuesday, March 10th. March 30th in a 13-man battle royale for $1,000 cash. Also, Duke Miller versus Rick Gibson for Alabama's state title. 5 other bouts, bell time, 8 p.m. Oh, my God. Can you imagine how much fun that would be? True story. I'm not embellishing this. I was coming back from a flight overseas one time. I was at LaGuardia Airport trying to catch a flight to Chicago to get back to Birmingham to get back to work. I'm not kidding you. Andre the Giant, remember the metal detector things, those narrow doorways they make that you have to go through? I swear to you, he was going through it and he got stuck in there. And it was like going, woo, 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 woo. And they were going, sir, you stay still. He goes, he was stuck and he snapped it and it went pow all over the place. Needless to say, I did the OJ. I ran as fast as I could. The plane was backing out and I missed it. And I had to spend the night there in the airport because of Andre the Giant smashing that. He was so big, ginormous is an understatement. The biggest human being I've ever seen. Letterman had him on one time and he said, Andre, I know you like to drink a little bit of beer. What's the most number of beers you've ever drank at once? And he said, I think 87 one time. 87 beers. He goes, how'd you feel? He goes, well, I don't remember. He was a giant of a man. Could you imagine him as a defensive tackle? 7'4", 424 pounds. I don't know where he was from, but he would have had some NIL. I'll just say that, Matt. Could you imagine being his agent?
Well, I'm just trying to picture that incident in LaGuardia Airport, Rob. That's pretty impressive.
I saw it. I was right there. I wish I had.
I will tell you,
it would have been video.
Speaking of great wrestlers, they had a shot of the Memphis game this weekend. The King, Jerry Lawyer, was there, and I thought he looked really good, man. He had that white beard trimmed, and he looked really good. And growing up in Iowa, besides doing a lot of bowling when the weather was bad, we watched a lot of wrestling, man. I love me some wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, look, wrestling's as good as it gets. Anyone that did not grow up, we're all lucky enough. We grew up Saturday morning at 9 or 10, whatever, in Memphis, WMC TV5, 1960 Union Avenue. Lance Banana Nose Russell and Dave Browne, Jerry Lawler, Jimmy Hart, Handsome Jimmy Valiant. I went many a Saturday. Henry B would get us tickets, and I'd take 8 or 10 friends. We stood in line one time for an hour and a half during an ice storm with about 600 people trying to get in there in that small Saturday morning studio. Boss Bob Crone, one of our teachers at Christian Brothers, was one of the cameramen out there. And those women would kill you if you tried to lay a hand on the King. they would jump out of the crowd. Being a security guard there, it wasn't like being Asa on that episode of Andy Griffith's show when he was over there asleep and his gun fell apart because he hadn't gone and put the pin in it. Wrestling, and by the way, that stuff was all real. But anyway, John, talking about this, what's going on in college athletics. I mean, we got about 15 minutes into the show. I got to say this, the enthusiasm, you talk about getting people there, increasing your crowds in Monroe. And I put up there, David Schultz, love that guy. Schultzy-cast, at Schultzy-cast. I've named him the Sultan of the Sun Belt. Man, again, do yourself a favor. The more college football you as a fan, doesn't matter who you're a fan of or what conference, the more you watch it around the country, the more you learn to appreciate it. And you understand that it matters everywhere that they keep score. That's why we keep score.
Yeah, the interest level is really high. I'll have to give hats off, although it was, it was the second of two heartbreaking losses for our Warhawks in a 15-day period, losing in the last minute of the game in San Marcos, Texas, Saturday. But there were 30,000 people plus to see us and Texas State play Saturday. Great crowd. It was homecoming there. They've done a really nice job. It's one of the fastest most rapid growing enrollments of any four-year school in the entire country. That whole area there between Austin and San Antonio basically is there is no hill country really left. I mean, the hill country is there, but it's all developed. So but it was a really good football game. But like you say, everywhere, people are interested, not only for seeing incredible student athletes play, but the individual storylines, things going on that are happening. And, I'd be remiss, and you guys probably already talked about it. I'm sure you talked about it with Tony Barnhart in the earlier segment. But one of the really interesting games Saturday is Ole Miss and Auburn, and all the intertwining between, Lane Kiffin being a candidate for that job, Hugh having been at Ole Miss. I mean, there's a lot of storylines developing around that football game Saturday.
There are, and Hugh Freeze. He knows what he's got to do down there at Auburn. He's not calling the plays right now. I wish he was. He's a great play caller. That's what's got him this far. But he has a plan, and I think he and Billy Napier are going to have similar paths to success. They both have a lot to do, but right now it's recruit, and there are a lot of angles. It's going to be hard for Auburn to keep up if they try to get into a track meet because they don't have an offense. You have to search far and wide to find one that's less productive, but at some point they'll find it. And if you're Auburn, you hope it's Saturday. Matt, you're talking about the football. I want to ask your thoughts, both of y'all. Tennessee and Alabama, that one's coming up. Arkansas, Mississippi State, both those coaches are struggling. It's like Larry Munson, struggling, grinding, just one. Something's got to break. Dogs need a miracle here with 71 seconds left. Lauren, what do you got? Well, John Hartwell, the quarterback there for Georgia Tech, is just unstoppable, and he's 19 out of 19 here in the first quarter. Going to be a long day. All right, that's enough, Lauren. Let's go. Matt, man, I'm drinking this coffee. Not as much as normal. I've reduced the dosage, but Matt, Tennessee, Alabama, third Saturday in October. I love it. Keep it on that date. That's why when Texas and Oklahoma get in, they're going to have the votes. Greg Sankey will have the votes. And he'll get the 3-6 plan. I don't like 1-7. I don't like people saying we're not going to have these great rivalries. At worst case, you're going to play every team twice in a 4-year period with the 3-6.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you don't keep Tennessee, Alabama, right? I mean, since I moved to the South 30 plus years ago, it's the staple in the month of October for both those fan bases. And this year it's going to be an intriguing game because, in the past, Alabama was more explosive offensively. Last year, Tennessee was more explosive offensively. Tremendous athletes on both sides of the ball. The game's in Tuscaloosa this year, so I would give the edge, obviously, to the Crimson Tide. I do think, going back to I think Ronnie and Huntsville's comment about the whole defense is catching up. I think that's just a sign of where I think it's the Kirby Smart model, and really it stems from the Nick Saban model, is you want to have an elite defense that can take care of any offensive scheme you see, right? And you want to have the ability to run the football and then use that to play passes and hit big plays to your wide receivers. Now, in 19, when Joe Burrow and LSU destroyed everyone, that LSU defense didn't have to be elite because, my God, their offense was. It was incredible. Yeah. One of the best offenses we've seen in college football. And that's why we've talked about in the show, this segment, those top 8, 9, 10, 11 teams, who's the most complete? I know we have a rankings that say Georgia and Michigan, Ohio State, I think, are the top 3 right now. But, man, I'm going to tell you who's got an elite offense is Washington. And I saw it on Saturday. And Oregon's not far behind them. And I'm really going to be intrigued. The second half of the season, we got some great matchups coming. You look at this weekend in the Big Ten, you got Penn State, Ohio State, right? We don't talk about Penn State a lot, but they have a very, very good defense that's borderline elite. Can they go into the shoe, and can they beat Ohio State? If they do, they're in the conversation. And all 3 of those teams, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, play each other, and then whoever wins that's going to dominate the Big Ten West in the championship game. But I'm just so intrigued with college football this year because we know this in March Madness, John, in basketball. We know coming into March Madness, there's usually a bunch of teams that can make a run and get to the Final Four. But usually in college football, man, we know there's 1 or 2 teams, and that's kind of it. That's not the case this year. This is fun, guys.
It is. John?
Yeah, I think it is. And, a really good point about Brock Bowers and his injury and what does that do to Georgia. I know you mentioned Air Force earlier. Air Force 6-0.
Yeah.
Their quarterback is out. So obviously this time of year, injuries take their toll, but that leads to depth too. Who next man up? Who has the depth to be able to overcome, significant injuries like that, to not miss a beat. And that's going to be interesting here as we get down to these last couple of weeks of October and working towards the stretch of the home stretch of November for these teams that are vying for CFP things. But it's, again, at the end of the day, really exciting college football, and looking forward to the games this weekend. For one, I think you're right about Penn State. I think they've gone under the radar screen. Yeah. I kind of like Penn State this weekend going into Columbus and getting a W.
Yeah, I like Jerry in Clarksville, Tennessee, who's pitching for Iowa this Saturday. I mean, you know what?
I can't defend it, Rob. I can't defend it.
Oh, shnikes. I love it. Look, I love college football. I love the people. I love all these games. This is what makes it so much fun. Iowa 6-1. You think they're not doing the hokey pokey up there in Iowa City? You out of your mind? Children's Hospital, a $1.5–2 billion endowment. I spent a lot of time hunting in Iowa. Great people up there. And I mean, yeah. I do. Iowa's no different than Alabama. Talk a little bit different, but I will tell you, first time I went pheasant hunting up there, November of '97, Jake, our guide, he was this older guy. He was incredible. We walked about 15 miles a day in that switchgrass. Saw 300-pound deer. I've never seen deer that big in my life everywhere up there. It's just not as many people. They get bigger. And we're sitting there eating lunch, drinking some, Rhodes sodas after the hunt, of course. And we were talking about college football, and he knew everything about college football in the South and the SEC because they would watch those games. It's unreal. And people down here, we know about Iowa. We know who Neil Kinnock was. He was killed in World War II. I mean, that's what Kinnock Stadium named Niall Kinnock. And I used to listen to, still do, AM 1040 WHO, Des Moines, Iowa, the Hawkeye Network. Remember Ed Podolak?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
he's still doing games.
Yeah. So we keep up with the games, and I love having y'all on here. And look, when I win the lottery, we're gonna take over college football. I'm gonna hire y'all too. We're just gonna get it done because you understand. Well, you got to know the rules. You got to know the compliance manual, which is exciting reading. I'd put it right up there with the Norton Anthology of Elizabethan Poetry and English Literature. If you have trouble sleeping, may I suggest you read maybe a couple of pages and you're out for the night. All right, we've run out of time, folks. Great stuff as always. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. A country is the people, not the government. Go out and do kind things. Well, any chance that you get, it goes a long way to change people's lives. Matt, you and John tell people how they can follow you. And folks, we'll be back with you tomorrow. Got another great show in store, as always, on Fun Friday. But y'all tag out and let them know because I want people to support you. John?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, ULMWarhawks.com for anything and everything Warhawk Athletics. John_Hartwell Twitter. We are off to Statesboro, Georgia this weekend to play the Georgia Southern Eagles Saturday afternoon tilt there. Trying to connect with another one of Rob's regulars, Ben Troop. And
you got his contact info, don't you?
Yeah. And I reached out to Ben yesterday, so hopefully he can make the trip over from Savannah to help cheer the Warhawks on. But as always, guys, love solving the world's problems with y'all.
We did it, Matt. I love it.
Now, quickly, at Dino Hoops 44, if you want to follow my X feed, working on my chapter outline of the book. Hopefully this time next year we'll have something in hardback. And then Go Lynx, our football team, won the Oracle Cup last week, beat Swanee 30-10. Rich Duncan's 5-2 in his third year. Both our soccer teams are competing for playoff spots. And our field hockey team beat big rival Center 3-2 in overtime. They're 10-3. Signing out, Taylor.
I love it. And listen, Coach John Brady will be on with us tomorrow morning. He's been at SEC Media Day there at the Bohemian Hotel there in Mountain Brook. What a tough place to have to go spend a few days, but somebody's got to do it. So college basketball, I know both of y'all are basketball junkies. You both played it in college. God, I love talking basketball with y'all. I get it. That's as much fun. And think about it. It's because we have that big tournament. It creates interest. Every game matters. Yeah. Hey, folks, until tomorrow, we are out of here. Go out and have a great day. Thanks for watching.